My name is Grace Myers. I'm 36 years old. 20 years ago, my parents kicked me out of the house for getting pregnant in 10th grade. 16 years old. November rain, one suitcase. My mother pointing at the door, telling me I was dead to them. That same night, they signed papers erasing me from the family. Me and any child I might ever have. I kept those papers. I kept everything. For 2 decades, I was invisible. They told everyone I'd moved abroad. Built their spotless reputation on the grave of the daughter they threw away. Then last week, they showed up at my door, desperate, smiling, demanding to meet their grandson, a grandson they'd bragged about for months to 200 of their most powerful friends. They offered me $250,000. They had no idea that the grandson they'd been promising everyone didn't exist, and what they found instead would tear apart everything they'd spent 50 years building. Portland, Oregon, November 2004. I was 16. A sophomore at St. Catherine's Academy, and the youngest child of Richard and Diane Myers. On paper, we were the perfect family. My father owned a successful real estate law practice downtown, Myers and Associates, established 1987. My mother had been president of the Parent-Teacher Association for 4 consecutive years. We sat in the front pew at Grace Fellowship Church every Sunday, dressed in coordinated outfits my mother selected each Saturday night. But every family has its hierarchy, and I learned mine early. Nathan, my older brother, was 22 and in his 3rd year of dental school. He was the pride of the family, the son who would carry on the Myers name. Carolyn, 20, was studying to become a teacher, the beautiful daughter who never questioned anything. And then there was me. I was what my mother once called the surprise, born when she was 34, 6 years after she thought she was done having children. I don't think she ever forgave me for disrupting her plans. The signs were subtle, but constant. Family photos displayed prominently in the living room somehow never included my school portraits. Dinner conversations revolved around Nathan's clinical rotations or Carolyn's student teaching placement. When I mentioned making the honor roll, my father would nod and say, "That's nice, Grace," before turning back to Nathan. I learned to make myself small, to not ask for too much, to not need too much. My father had a saying he repeated at every family gathering. Reputation takes 20 years to build, and 5 minutes to destroy. I didn't understand then how prophetic those words would become, or that I would be the 5 minutes he feared. I met Marcus Webb at the public library downtown. It sounds unremarkable, but for me, the library was sanctuary, a place where no one compared me to my siblings or reminded me of expectations I could never meet. I went there 3 afternoons a week. Ostensibly to study, really, just to breathe. Marcus attended Jefferson High, the public school my parents would never acknowledge existed. He was 17, worked part-time at his uncle's auto repair shop, and had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. He found me crying in the biography section one October afternoon, after my mother had forgotten to pick me up from school for the 3rd time that month. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You okay?" No one had asked me that in a very long time. We dated secretly for 2 months. He was gentle and patient, and made me feel like I mattered, like I was someone worth remembering. October 28, 2004. I'll never forget staring at that pregnancy test in the bathroom of a gas station 3 miles from my school. 2 pink lines. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I told Marcus he didn't run, he didn't make excuses. He held my hands and said, "We'll figure this out together, Grace. You're not alone." I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But I knew my parents. I knew what mattered to them. And I knew that when I told them, their first question wouldn't be, "Are you okay?" It would be, "What will people think?" I decided to tell them at Sunday dinner. I didn't know it would be the last meal I'd ever eat in that house. Sunday, November 14th, 2004, 7:32 p.m. The roast beef was overcooked. I remember that detail because I was staring at it trying to find the courage to speak while my father complained about a property dispute and my mother calculated which families would attend the church Christmas gala. "I have something to tell you." The table went quiet. 4 faces turned toward me. My parents, Nathan home for the weekend, Carolyn visiting from college. I was 8 weeks pregnant and I couldn't hide it much longer. "I'm pregnant," my mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father didn't move. "Who is the father?" His voice was ice. "Is it someone from St. Catherine's? Someone we know? His name is Marcus Webb. He goes to Jefferson High. He works at the public school." My mother's face had gone pale. You've been seeing a boy from the public school. He's a good person, Mom. He does. He come from a good family. My father cut in. What does his father do? He lives with his uncle. He works at an auto shop. The silence that followed lasted exactly 11 seconds. I counted. Then my father stood. You will not keep it. Richard, my mother started. She will not destroy everything we've built. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was something that needed to be removed. If you keep that baby, you are no longer part of this family. By 9:15 p.m., I was standing on the front porch with one suitcase, rain soaking through my sweater. My mother had opened the door and pointed outside. Not my father, my mother. Nathan and Caroline watched from the upstairs window. Neither of them came down. I called Marcus from a payphone at the gas station on Malbury Street. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. He picked up on the second ring. Grace, what's wrong? They kicked me out. 20 minutes later, his uncle's truck pulled up to the gas station. Marcus jumped out before it fully stopped, wrapped me in his jacket and held me while I sobbed against his chest. I've got you, he said. I've got you. We didn't have a plan. We had $300 between us. A truck with questionable brakes and nowhere to go. That's when Margaret Torres saved my life. She was our neighbor, 3 houses down from the Myers residence, 62 years old, retired school teacher, the only person on our street who didn't treat my father like he owned the neighborhood. She'd seen me standing in the rain from her window. She'd watched long enough to understand. You can stay with me, she said when I knocked on her door at nearly 10 o'clock at night. As long as you need. 2 weeks. That's how long we stayed in Mrs. Torres's guest room before Marcus found us a studio apartment in Seattle. $425 a month, above a laundromat that smelled like bleach and secondhand hope. My parents had their lawyer draw up papers the night they threw me out. I know because my father mailed me a copy 3 days later. Certified mail, signature required, like I was a business transaction. The document stated that Grace Elizabeth Myers forfeited all inheritance rights, and the Myers family bore no legal or moral obligation to her or any child born to her. I kept that paper. I've kept it for 20 years. Lily Grace Myers Webb was born on July 6, 2005, at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Her father's brown eyes and my stubborn chin. She came into the world screaming, and I thought, good, scream, make them hear you. Don't ever let anyone make you small. The first 5 years were a blur of survival. Marcus worked double shifts at a repair shop in Ballard while I finished my GED, then started community college classes, 2 at a time, whatever I could manage around Lily's schedule. We lived on ramen noodles and free bread from the day-old bin at the bakery down the street. I learned to sew patches onto patches to make a dollar stretch until it begged for mercy. I sent my parents a birth announcement when Lily was born. No response. I sent a photo on her first birthday. Silence. By her second birthday, I stopped trying. Marcus and I never got married. We kept saying we would someday when we had money for a real wedding. When life calmed down, someday kept getting pushed back. Then, on March 15, 2010, a delivery truck ran a red light on Aurora Avenue. Marcus was driving home from a night shift. The police officer who came to my door said he died on impact. He was 26 years old. Lily was 4. The life insurance policy Marcus had through work paid out $12,000. That was it. $12,000 for 26 years of a good man's life. I was 22 years old, a single mother with a 4-year-old daughter, $12,000, and absolutely no one to call. I could have given up then. I didn't. I'd started doing small interior design projects while Marcus was alive, decorating apartments for neighbors who couldn't afford professionals, staging homes for real estate agents willing to take a chance on a young mother with no credentials. I had an eye for it, people said. A gift for making small spaces feel like home. After Marcus died, I threw myself into that work like my life depended on it, because it did. 2012, I met Eleanor Vance at a design workshop at Seattle Central College. She was 52, recently retired as creative director of a major design firm and looking for a project. For reasons I still don't fully understand, she chose me. You have talent, she said after reviewing my portfolio. Raw, unpolished, but real. Let me help you shape it. 2014. With Eleanor's mentorship and a $50,000 SBA loan that took me 3 attempts to secure, I founded Hearth Home Interiors. Our first office was a converted closet in a shared workspace, 2018, 8 employees. Revenue, $1.2 million. 2022, Seattle Met Magazine ran a feature story on me, from teen mom to design CEO Grace Myers' story. The journalist spent 3 days interviewing me about my journey. The pregnancy at 16, being cut off from my family, losing Marcus, building a business from nothing. I told her everything except my parents' names. Not to protect them. To protect Lily from anyone who might try to connect her to people who never wanted her to exist. 2024, 22 employees. Revenue $4.2 million. A corner office overlooking Capitol Hill. My daughter was 19, a sophomore at the University of Washington, majoring in psychology. She was brilliant and fierce and everything I'd hoped she would become. 20 years, no contact from the Myers family until last week. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, 6:47 p.m. I just gotten home from a client meeting. A tech executive renovating her Mercer Island waterfront property, a contract worth $800,000. My mind was still running through fabric samples and lighting options. When I turned onto my street and saw the car, a black Mercedes-Benz S-Class, Oregon plates, my heart stopped. I parked in my driveway and sat there for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, watching two figures standing at my front door. The man had gray hair now, stooped shoulders. The woman still held herself with that rigid posture. I remembered that constant vigilance against anything that might disturb her carefully constructed world. Richard and Diane Myers, my parents. I hadn't seen them in 20 years. I considered driving away, going to a hotel, calling Lily, pretending this wasn't happening, but I was 36 years old. I owned a company. I had built a life without them. I would not run. I got out of my car and walked toward them. My father spoke first. "Grace, you look." He paused, scanning me. My designer coat, my leather bag, my house. "Well, what are you doing here?" My mother stepped forward. Her face had more lines now, her hair a careful shade of ash blonde that didn't quite match her age. "We know about your son, Grace. We know you have a son." I stared at her. "We'd like to meet him," my father added. "We'd like to reconnect as a family." The absurdity of it nearly made me laugh. 20 years of silence, 20 years of pretending I didn't exist. And now they were standing on my porch asking to meet a grandson they'd never bothered to know. A grandson who didn't exist. I let them into my house. I still don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear what 20 years of silence had led to. My father sat in my living room like he was evaluating a property for purchase, assessing the hardwood floors, the custom built-in shelves, the original artwork on the walls. My mother perched on the edge of my sofa, hands folded, spine straight. "Your anniversary," I said. "That's why you're here." 50 years. My father almost smiled. "November 15th, we're hosting a celebration at the Heathman Hotel. 200 guests. The mayor will be there. Pastor Harrison, the Rotary Club board. What does that have to do with me?" My mother exchanged a glance with my father. "There have been questions, Grace, about you, about what happened 20 years ago. People talk," my father added. "Some people remember that we had a third child. They've asked where you are. What happened to you? We've always said you moved away, went abroad. But lately, questions have become more persistent. So you need me to make an appearance. Show everyone that the Myers family is whole and happy. We need your son." My mother's voice was firm. "We've told people about him, about our grandson. He should be there representing the next generation of the Myers family." The room went very still. "Who told you I have a son? We read that article." My father waved his hand dismissively. "The magazine piece. It mentioned your child, your successful business. You've done better than we expected." Better than we expected. As if I'd been graded, as if my entire life was a test I might have failed. "And if I refuse?" My father's jaw tightened. "Let's not make this difficult, Grace." My father reached into his leather briefcase and withdrew a blank check. The sight of it made my stomach turn. "We're prepared to compensate you," he said, placing it on my coffee table. $250,000. You bring your son to the party. Stay for 3 hours, take some family photos, then you can return to your life. I looked at the check, then at my mother, who was nodding as if this were the most reasonable proposition in the world. $250,000? I repeated. "Is that what 20 years of silence costs? We're also prepared to reinstate you in the family trust." My mother leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The combined estate is valued at $3.8 million. You would have an equal share with Nathan and Carolyn. I thought about that studio apartment above the laundromat, the nights I'd worked double shifts while Lily slept in a playpen behind the counter of a coffee shop because I couldn't afford childcare. The years I'd spent building something from nothing while they sat in their Portland mansion pretending I'd never existed. And if I say no, my father's expression hardened. We would prefer not to involve your son directly, Grace, but if necessary, we can reach out to him ourselves. Explain the situation, help him understand his family history. It was a threat, subtle, but unmistakable. You want to contact my child? I said slowly. And tell them your version of what happened. We want to be a family again. My mother spread her hands, the picture of reasonableness. Isn't that what you've always wanted? I was about to answer when I heard footsteps on the stairs, and everything changed. Mom, is everything okay? I heard voices. Lily stopped at the bottom of the stairs, her psychology textbook still in her hand. She was wearing sweatpants and a University of Washington hoodie, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked exactly like what she was, a 19-year-old college student who'd been studying in her room. My mother rose to her feet, her face cycling through confusion, calculation, and something close to horror. Who is this? This is Lily. I stood positioning myself slightly between my daughter and my parents. My daughter? Your granddaughter? Daughter? My father's voice cracked. But we were told the article said child. You assumed the rest. Lily's gaze moved from me to the strangers in our living room. Understanding dawned in her eyes. These are them, the grandparents who threw you out when you were pregnant with me? My mother flinched. That's not... It was more complicated then. Which part was complicated? Lily crossed her arms. The part where you kicked a 16-year-old out in the rain, or the part where you spent 20 years pretending she didn't exist? Young lady, my father started. I'm not your young lady. I'm the grandchild you never wanted to meet, the one you tried to make disappear. Lily's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling. I know everything. Mom never hid it from me. I know about the letter. I know about the inheritance papers. I know you told your friends she went abroad. My parents sat in stunned silence. Lily looked at me. They came here for a grandson, didn't they? Someone they could show off? Yes. She turned back to them with a cold smile. Surprise! My father recovered faster than my mother. I watched him recalibrate, the lawyer in him assessing this new variable. A granddaughter, he said carefully. That works. We can adjust the narrative. Lily can come to the party as what? Lily cut in. The secret granddaughter you've been hiding for 19 years. The daughter of the teen mom you threw away. We could say you were studying abroad. My mother's voice was pleading now. Recently returned. A surprise reunion. I was born in Seattle. I've never left the country. I'm a sophomore at UW. Lily laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you even hear yourselves? You want me to lie to 200 people about my entire existence? The party is November 15th. My father checked his watch as if time was the only variable that mattered. 10 days from now. We need an answer by the 10th. I stood. I think you should leave. Grace, I'll consider what you've said, but not tonight. Not with Lily here. My mother rose, gathering her handbag. At the door, she turned back. This is an opportunity to heal, Grace, to put the past behind us. Don't let old wounds cost you your future. I watched them walk to their Mercedes, watched my father help my mother into the passenger seat the same way he had 1,000 times before, as if this were any ordinary evening. When the car disappeared around the corner, Lily spoke. You're not actually considering this, are you? I looked at my daughter, this fierce, brilliant young woman I'd raised alone, the person Richard and Diane Myers had tried to erase from existence before she was even born. No, I said, but I'm not done with them yet. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood where I stood that night, facing people who abandoned you only to return when they needed something? I'd love to know what you would have done in my position. Drop a comment below. And if you want to see how this all unfolds, hit that subscribe button because what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. That night, after Lily went to bed, I pulled a fireproof lockbox from the back of my closet. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were the documents of my eraser. The notarized letter of disinheritance dated November 14th, 2004, signed by Richard Allen Myers and Diane Elizabeth Myers. Witnessed by a notary named Harold Brennan. I remembered the day my father mailed it to me, certified mail, requiring my signature, as if he wanted to make sure I knew exactly how thorough he'd been. The document was 3 pages, legal language designed to be airtight, ensuring that Grace Elizabeth Myers hereby forfeits all claims to the Myers family estate, and that the family bears no legal or moral obligation to the aforementioned party or any dependents thereof. Any dependents thereof. Lily, reduced to 3 words in a legal document, erased before she took her first breath. I photographed each page with my phone, uploaded them to my cloud storage, made backup copies. Mom. I looked up. Lily was standing in my doorway, arms wrapped around herself. I couldn't sleep either. She sat beside me on the bed, looking at the document spread across my comforter. Is that the letter? Yes. She picked up the first page, reading slowly. When she finished, her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. They really did it, she whispered. They really just cut you out like you were nothing. They did. What are you going to do with these? I looked at my daughter at the evidence of 20 years of calculated cruelty laid out before us. I don't know yet, I admitted. But whatever I do, they won't be able to pretend anymore. Lily nodded slowly. I might have an idea. The next morning, I made a call I hadn't made in over a year. Margaret Torres answered on the 3rd ring. Grace, is that you, sweetheart? Mrs. Torres? I smiled despite everything. I hope I'm not calling too early. At my age, early is relative. What's wrong? You sound like you've got weight on your shoulders. I told her about my parents' visit, about the grandson they'd invented, the anniversary party, the $250,000. When I finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Those people, she finally said. 20 years, and they haven't changed one bit. Mrs. Torres, I need to ask you something. That night, November 14th, 2004, I remember it like it was yesterday. Her voice hardened. I watched from my window, saw you standing in the rain, that little suitcase at your feet, watched your parents' car drive away. I should have come out sooner. I've regretted that every day since. Do you still have your security camera footage from back then? A pause. You know, I never delete anything. Old teacher's habit. Document everything. Let me check my files. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email. A grainy but unmistakable image. A 16-year-old girl standing on a porch in the rain. 9:17 p.m., November 14th, 2004. The timestamp was visible in the corner. The address, my parents' house, was partially visible in the frame. That's you, Mrs. Torres said when I called her back. That's the night they threw you away. Would you be willing to verify this officially if needed? Honey, I've been waiting 20 years for someone to ask. Her voice was fierce. Whatever you need, I'm there. I thanked her and hung up. 2 pieces of evidence, 2 witnesses. Now, I needed a plan. I spent that evening rereading my own story. The Seattle Met article was still available online, shared over 12,000 times since it was published in March 2022. The journalist Rebecca Hang had titled it From Teen Mom to Design CEO Grace Myers' Story. 2,500 words about loss, resilience, and building something from the ruins of everything you thought you knew. I'd been careful in that interview. I'd told the truth, but not the whole truth. I mentioned being estranged from my family without naming names or cities. I talked about becoming a mother at 17 without identifying the parents who'd cast me out. Not to protect them, to protect Lily from strangers making connections, asking questions, dredging up pain that didn't belong to them. Now, I scrolled through the comments, thousands of them. This woman is incredible. Imagine being thrown away by your own family and still becoming this successful. I went through something similar. This story gives me hope. Someone should make a movie about her life. Seriously, one comment caught my eye. Posted just 2 weeks ago. Does anyone know if she's related to the Myers family in Portland? The law firm people? Someone in my church mentioned it, and now I'm curious. So, that's how my parents found out. My phone rang. Eleanor Vance. Grace. I heard through the grapevine that your parents materialized after 2 decades of radio silence. I laughed, despite myself. News travels fast. This is Seattle. Everything travels fast. Her voice softened. What do you need? I don't know yet. Advice, maybe? Perspective. What I know, Eleanor said, is that you've spent 20 years proving who you are without them. Don't let 3 hours at their party undo that. She was right, but I was already thinking bigger than 3 hours. Thursday, November 7th, 2024. 3:42 p.m. My phone showed an Oregon area code I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. Grace, it's Nathan. I hadn't heard my brother's voice in 20 years. It was deeper now, weathered. The voice of a man in his 40s instead of the 22-year-old who'd watched from an upstairs window while I stood in the rain. Nathan, I know. I know I have no right to call. I know you have no reason to talk to me. He exhaled shakily. But I need you to know some things before whatever happens next. Then talk. The grandson's story. The whole thing about you having a son that came from Mom. She read the Seattle Met article 2 years ago, but didn't read it carefully. Just saw a child in successful business and constructed this whole narrative about you having a boy who was some kind of entrepreneur. She invented a grandson. She told her church friends, her Rotary friends, built an entire story about this brilliant young man continuing the Myers legacy. Nathan's voice cracked. Dad went along with it. They've been dining out on your imaginary son for months. I closed my eyes. Even now, even after everything, my parents' capacity for delusion still stunned me. Why are you telling me this? Because I was a coward. Grace, 20 years ago, I should have come downstairs. I should have said something. I should have. He stopped, breathing hard. Caroline and I have talked about it for years. We were wrong. We've always been wrong. And now I want to make it right. Whatever that looks like. Nathan paused. The anniversary party. Caroline and I will be there. If you decide to come, you won't be alone. I didn't know what to say to that. Nathan talked for another hour. He told me about the unwritten rules of being a Myers child, the expectations, the constant performance, the way our parents wielded approval like a weapon, granting it to those who complied and withdrawing it from anyone who stepped out of line. Caroline has 2 kids, he said, 8 and 11. She's terrified of them growing up the way we did, walking on eggshells, never knowing if they're good enough. Why didn't you ever reach out in 20 years? Long pause. I almost did 5 years ago. I had your number, found it through the business website, dialed it at least a dozen times. His voice dropped, and every time I hung up before it connected because I knew that if I talked to you, I'd have to admit what I let happen. And I wasn't ready. What changed? Seeing them show up at your door demanding a grandson that doesn't exist. Watching them try to buy you like you're a prop for their anniversary photo. Nathan exhaled. It made me realize if I don't say something now, I never will. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I failed you twice. I thought about the brother I remembered, the one who played board games with me when our parents were at their charity galas, the one who taught me to ride a bike in the backyard. There's something you should know, Nathan added, the anniversary party. There's going to be a family moment that gets live-streamed on the church Facebook page, Pastor Harrison's idea, a show of unity for the congregation, a live stream, 200 witnesses in person, and who knew how many more watching online. Thank you for telling me, Nathan. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, but I'm starting to see it clearly. Friday, November 8th, 2024, 10:14 a.m. My father called directly this time. No preamble. Grace, we're running out of time. The party is in 1 week. $250,000 full reinstatement in the family trust. Final offer. I've been talking to Nathan. Silence. He told me about the grandson story you've been telling people. The one you made up based on an article you didn't bother to read carefully. That's not, we may have embellished slightly. You invented an entire person. You've been telling your friends about your successful grandson for months. A grandson that doesn't exist. Grace. My father's voice hardened. I don't appreciate your tone. After everything we're offering. What exactly are you offering? Money to make me perform for your friends? A spot in a trust you used to erase me? I kept my voice calm, steady. You're not offering me anything. You're trying to buy your way out of a lie you created. You have no right to judge us. Now he was angry. You're the one who destroyed this family. You're the one who brought shame. I was 16 years old. I was pregnant and scared, and I needed my parents. My grip tightened on the phone. And you threw me out like garbage and spent 20 years pretending I died. If you don't come to this party, Grace, you will never have another opportunity to be part of this family. You said that 20 years ago, and you know what? I built a better life without you than I ever would have had with you. We'll see about that. He hung up. I sat in my office, heart pounding, mind racing, 1 week, 200 guests. 1 live stream. It was time to stop letting them control the narrative. That evening, I sat at my dining table with Lily and Eleanor. They want a performance, Eleanor said, swirling her wine. They want you to show up, smile for the cameras, validate 20 years of lies. They want to use you, Lily added. The same way they've always used you as something to manage.